Today, we're diving into a really powerful philosophical parable. It's a story that ultimately asks a question every single one of us has to face, in one way or another. Do we choose the comfort of a gilded cage, or do we choose the terrifying freedom of the unknown? Let's get into it.
So our story starts right here with this sentence that just paints such a grim, vivid picture. Welcome to the Abbey of Safety. But that name is a total lie, right? Just look at the words. Gloom, stagnation, gilded cage. They tell you the real story. This place isn't a sanctuary. It's a beautiful prison. A monument to a life that's been completely left unlived.
So, here's how our story is going to unfold in 6 acts. We're going to follow a lone figure, the Wanderer. We'll see him move from the suffocating comfort of that gilded cage to a confrontation with some pretty unsettling guides. He's going to be faced with 2 powerful, completely opposite philosophies, and in the end, we'll get to witness his incredible transformation.
All right, Act 1. We start inside the gilded cage. The source material calls it the architecture of stagnation, which is perfect. It's a system that has been meticulously designed not to actually promote life, but to help its inhabitants avoid it, you know? It's a fortress built on the foundations of a comfortable, quiet kind of decay.
Now, at the very heart of this place, there's a sickness the text calls the Pharisees' paradox. And it's a really horrifying idea when you think about it. It's this state of being where you're performing all the rituals of life perfectly, with surgical precision. But the spirit inside, well, it's already rotted away. They've literally traded an authentic, messy, vital existence for a hollow performance.
And here you can see the central conflict just laid bare. Inside the Abbey, you've got the gilded cage. You've got the dim lamp glow of just surviving and this passive acceptance of being hollow. But outside, that's the desert. It's a place of harsh freedom, the lightning of a real, vital life, and a terrifying absolute solitude. 2 very different paths leading to 2 very different fates.
Okay, so in Act 2, this is where things take a much darker turn. From the shadows of this rotting society, 2 figures emerge. And let me be clear, they are not heroes. The text calls them guides to the abyss, and their whole purpose isn't salvation, it's revelation. They're there to force you to see the truth of your own decay.
First, we meet the Red Spectre, the so-called architect of dismantlement. He's like a surgeon of the soul who sees your individuality not as a gift but as a disease, like an error in the code of existence that needs to be erased. His goal is brutally simple: dismantle the self and return all those shattered pieces of humanity back to the quiet unity of the void.
And then you have his twin, the uncanny jester. Now this guy, he offers no jokes. He only offers the cold, hard truth. He's like a perfect mirror, reflecting the Abbey's decay with this unnerving precision. He is a not self, an empty vessel that just shows you the exact geometry of your failure, and he never, ever looks away.
You have to understand this. These 2 are not mentors, they're catalysts. Their presence is described as philosophical acid, dissolving all the comfortable lies that the inhabitants have built up around themselves. They're here for one reason: to expose the terminal sickness of the self, no matter how painful it might be.
And all of this brings us right to Act 3, and the core philosophy that these shadow saviors are pushing. It's called the logic of zero, and it's presented not as a threat, but as a gift, the crimson gift of surrender. So what is the logic of zero? Well, it's a seductive whisper, really. It's an argument for surrender that sounds an awful lot like salvation. It reframes giving up as a magnificent inverted descent. It offers you the crimson gift, permission to finally put down your weapons and just stop fighting. It promises the profound peace of an inorganic shore, a return to a state of non-being where all the pain just ends. Now pay really close attention to this metaphor. The end, the terminal shudder, it's not presented as an executioner. No, it's a midwife. It doesn't kill the soul, it delivers it from what this philosophy calls the original catastrophe, the state of being a separate individual self. This is exactly how it reframes total destruction as a form of salvation, a birth into the peace of nothingness. And so our wanderer rejects the Abbey. He actually does it. He steps out of that cage and into the harsh, unforgiving light of the desert. And here, in Act 4, he faces his greatest trial yet, a direct, one-on-one confrontation with the daemon of truth. Just try to imagine this scene for a second. The Wanderer is standing there before this powerful entity, this daemon, who is the living embodiment of the logic of zero. And the daemon looks at the Wanderer's determination, his will to survive, his will to exist, and he mocks it. He calls it a pathetic dagger of will, nothing more than a meaningless chemical scream against an infinite, silent void.
The demon then presents the Wanderer with an ultimatum. He calls it the choice of the hourglass. It's a choice between two completely different destinies. On one side, you have erasure, the sweet peace of the void, the promise of the logic of zero. And on the other, you have responsibility, the crushing, heavy burden of existence. A choice has to be made.
And right here, right on the brink, this is the turning point. In Act 5, the Wanderer rejects the Crimson Gift. He turns his back on surrender, and he embraces a brand new path, the logic of one. And this is a defiant Zarathustrian yes to life, in all its pain and all its glory.
I mean, the contrast here could not be more stark. The logic of zero is a descent into nothingness. The logic of one is a chaotic ascent toward power. Zero offers surrender. One demands a violent, beautiful affirmation of your entire history. It is literally the peace of non-being versus the triumph of becoming.
At the philosophical core of the logic of one is this single, incredibly powerful concept, amor fati, which means the love of fate. And this isn't just passive acceptance. It's an active, courageous love for your life in its entirety. Every triumph, every failure, every scar, every joy, a love so complete that you would choose to live it all again, exactly as it was for all eternity. So by choosing this, the Wanderer completely reframes the entire meaning of struggle. That full heavy weight of existence is no longer a curse that he needs to escape. Instead, it becomes the very material from which he forges his own dignity. It becomes a testament to a life lived with eyes wide open.
And that brings us to our final act, the sovereign triumph. This is the ultimate consequence of the Wanderer's choice, the final stage of his transformation into what the text calls the Overman.
The contrast is just wow. The final hour strikes, and that terminal shudder, the midwife of nothingness, it falls for those who stayed behind in the abbey. But the Wanderer, the one who chose the desert and the struggle, he remains. He has become a light that generates its own source in the darkness.
His final choice is everything. He chooses the eternal recurrence of the storm, the endless challenges of life, over the calm, dead peace of that inorganic shore. And in doing so, he proves a profound truth, that nothing truly dies where one chooses to grow.
And so, we're left with the Wanderer's choice, the gilded cage or the desert, surrender or struggle, the logic of zero or the logic of one. You know, this isn't just his choice. In some small way, it's ours too. He chose the storm over the shore, so the question is, what would you choose?